Welcome back to the Boomerang podcast. I'm here with John Ritchie. He is the founder of Caravan to Midnight, and I appreciate you coming on the show, John.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm actually just one of the people on Caravan with John B. Wells. He's actually the founder. He and Brendy, his wife, are. But I just do production work with him. We used to have a streaming platform down in Dallas, and we did some work with them then. So we've been known them quite some time.
Cool. And you were in the CIA for a period of time?
Yeah. I went in 97 and was there till about 2010. I was a case officer, worked in China, in Beijing, and was in the Middle East. I was in Pakistan and out in the Middle East, in Jordan, did some work down in Gitmo as well. So kind of made the rounds, Latin America as well.
So what is Caravan to Midnight? I'm just starting to learn. I'm learning about you with my audience on this one.
Yeah. Well, Caravan to Midnight was a John B. Wells's show. He does a nightly show out of Dallas called Caravan to Midnight, and he's kind of created this network out of it. He does an intelligence brief on Saturday evenings, and he's mostly radio, but he does what he calls a prelogue right before that. It's about a 30-minute video show, but he's been on the radio for quite some time. He started out on KZEW, the Rock and Roll Zoo in Dallas, when I was a young man, and then he's been on Art Bell's Coast to Coast. Used to fill in on that quite a little bit, and then started Caravan to Midnight. So he's been on for quite some time.
Interesting. So when you worked in the CIA, I mean, did you ever look into this is just coming to mind, but Johnny Chung with the Clintons taking the money?
I heard a lot about that. I mean, that was going on when I went into the agency and all the China Gate stuff. But I was never really, and I worked in what they call China Ops, which is is that department inside there that focuses on China globally and on the mainland China. And I never, some of these things are like these made up. I mean, they seem to catch traction in the media and places like that. But I have people come to me all the time and they'll say, "What do you know about this or that?" And I'll go, "I don't think that's a thing, but it could be." I mean, I don't know but I mean, I've had people question me about why certain things were happening here or in the Middle East or Iraq, Gitmo, whatever. And I always say, look, I was there. I never saw that. I never, I could only give what I've seen and what I've been, exposed to. But I was pretty well, ensconced in what was going on with China Ops and things like that. And this guy was mostly, I think more on the political side than he was on any kind of intel side. But who knows?
I mean, I heard it was just a cover up for the whole. I heard the Monica Lewinsky scandal was supposed to be the story that kind of covered up that whole, because they were giving bribes to the DNC.
Right. No, I mean, and that was an issue, and it's an issue just like what we've seen with what's going on with the Bidens and stuff like that. Once this, and even I've always told people, anybody who doesn't believe that the Clintons and that whole thing with the servers, and anybody who doesn't think that, that wasn't placed there to be able to allow people to access
it's outrageous. The Colorado
documents. Absolutely. And that's all they were doing. And I always said, you could go through and do an analysis of who accessed those files on those servers and who gave money to the Clinton, foundation. I guarantee there'd be an exact, if anybody ever did that kind of forensic audit on it, you'd find out it was easily.
I mean, yeah, that's what came to mind. Like when I see this Hunter stuff and I see this, Joe Biden taking money from China. Yeah, I think back to the Clintons and I think back to that situation. These guys, and it's probably not even just them, it's probably every politician out there.
Oh, yeah. No, I tell people that want to argue with me about left and right and, Republicans and Democrats. I'm like, stupid. You guys, it's a stupid argument. That's what they want you to argue. They want you to argue whether they were Republicans or Democrats, instead of saying, there's this whole cabal in DC that I always, people talk about civil wars. I said, the war isn't even going to be a civil war. It's going to be a war between the American people and this government, this monolith in DC. It's been weaponized against you. It's been, and right now it's doing one thing, and it is there to block any opposition to Biden or anybody else that they support. That's it. It is, all the agencies are weaponized. I even saw it when I was there, and I got out. It's been over a decade since I left the agency, and I still have contacts with the same people I knew when I was in, people that went through the farm with me, and people that, some of them have retired now, some of them are still in, but I just, and many of them are just holding their nose and waiting to get out. That's my generation now. A lot of them are retiring, or I got out kind of early. I got out mid-career, and I just didn't care for what I saw. And that was, we didn't use the term wokeness back then, but you could see it coming. You could see all the internal changes, and also the senior level people who just did not want to, they didn't want to have oversight. They did not agree with it, didn't want it. I saw that all the time, and I was like, this isn't where we're supposed to be.
Right. I mean, does CIA, do they, they're supposed to be looking at foreign countries, right? But they do look at the US.
Absolutely. Well, that changed with the Patriot Act. And what they did was they said, okay, well, the FBI, who's not supposed to have intel stuff, by the way, but they do now. We moved that whole counterintelligence CI thing into their realm. When they started, they were there for federal law enforcement. That was it. They weren't there for counterintelligence. Now they've moved into counterintelligence. Now they've heisted intelligence, and now the agencies, the two agencies, the FBI and CIA, just kind of meld together. One of them says that all they are is about domestic, but they're not. And look, the agency has always had their national resources. That's the group that works internally, and all they did was codified it with the Patriot Act, with these joint intelligence stations that they have all across America now, and that's all they've done. I mean, all they're doing in essence, because now you've got an FBI and an agency guy riding along with each other together, and they're bending the law in their favor any way they want to do it, and it's all nonsense. It's all it is. It's just a backdoor to everything the church committee set up, when they went in and took the wood to the agency in the 60s. But that's all they did. It's a backdoor.
Is FTX, do you think these guys are getting money from FTX?
Oh, I think I'm going to tell you something right from the start. And I've advised and worked with crypto and blockchain people. I've been doing it now for probably about the past 6-7 years. And I can tell you right now that thing was never even legitimate. The fact that you would see it on the breastplates of the umps and the MLB games and their logo and stuff, that just amazed me. And it got on the side of that building down in Miami. I was just amazed at that, because I even remember I talked to this guy, he's CFO of a big Fortune 500 company. And he's one of my connections. And he and I were talking about this, and he said, you know what? He says, me and my CEO went down there. He says, we went down there, and it was like a dorm. We walked through the place. Nobody even met us at the door. And there were cots, and it was, pizza boxes. And finally somebody realized we were there and realized we were supposed to be there. And they came and met us and said, hey, and then they started showing us around and everything. We left. And he said, and I wrote the CEO the next week, the boss the next week, said, hey, we're not going to put any money into that, are we? I mean, that's CFO's thinking. This was absurd what they saw. And CEO came back and said, yeah, let's do about 50 million. 50 million. Now, no corporate head would have gone in and done that if they didn't know that they were either having to do it, or that they didn't know that they would in some way not get that back.
Right.
Nobody would have put that money in there like that. That's ridiculous.
Outrageous.
It is.
Outrageous. And you're seeing some of these politicians out here in Arizona. They've been taking. Oh
yeah. I remember asking somebody before the Maricopa steal. I remember asking somebody about this years ago, about why did Katie Hobbs take money from the Taiwanese government, the MFA? Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They were through her disclosure, she had an element that was part of the. I don't understand how they were able to do that, and nobody's ever asked that question still.
Yeah,
but all of a sudden, what did we see? TSCM's got a nice setup going up in Phoenix now, and now we got one down here, right up here in Marana, that's going in. I mean, it was you know what this was.
I mean, Bob Menendez got caught with a lot of cash and gold bars. We call him Gold Bar Bob.
Yeah. No, he's
taking bribes from the what, Egyptian government, I think.
Yeah, Egyptians. He must have left the farm. He must have strayed off the farm or something, because he was good card carrying, Marxist Democrat. So for them to be ambushing him like this, that's telling.
I mean, I think our whole political class is taking payments, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, you look at anybody. I've said this for years, and people used to look at me. Get you. There goes the tinfoil hat again. But I always said nobody goes to D.C. and I really felt this way when McCain went there, and he did the thumbs down to getting rid of Obamacare. Now, he spent that whole year prior to that running here in Arizona on, I'm going to go kill Obamacare.
Yeah.
Those were his words, not mine, his words.
And then when he had the chance, he didn't.
And he's the deciding vote. He was the deciding vote on this. And I always told people, I said, look, anytime you see these people go to DC and they do the exact opposite of what they told you all, it's because whatever got them to do that, they're more scared of than they are you.
Exactly.
That's the essence of it. McCain was not worried about his constituents in Arizona. He was worried about whatever was pulling his strings, which was, I worked over in Kiev. I was telling somebody this the other day. I used to have a client, and I used to go to Kiev and work. And they got the Center for Democracy, the McCain Foundation Center for Democracy. And I always knew that was the biggest grift ever. Because here he comes back here and votes for all this money to go to the Ukraine. And the Ukraine, I had a guy tell me the other day, he says, it's a national sport, corruption is in the Ukraine. It has always been that way. And I was like, he's got a foundation over there trying to teach democracy to these people. Yeah. Okay. And this was pre-Zelensky. This was pre-war. Right. None of that was even there yet. Well, it wasn't pre-Zelensky, but it was just after color revolution and all the Maidan. And I used to see that thing, and I always told people, those things are all over the world. Here it's McCain's. Over there, it's going to be Menendez in Egypt, and over there, it's going to be Clinton in Haiti, and over there. But these people are all voting for direct foreign aid to go into those countries, and then right after the votes go through, watch who flies out there on Codels. Their people. And the only reason they go out there is to say, okay, you got your money, get that stuff into that foundation. Because that foundation is nothing but money laundering. That is how they go out there. They send their children or their wives or their friends and cousins to go out there working for them, to go out there and bring that money back into the U.S. to repatriate it. That's all it is. It's a scam. That thing's been a scam from the start. And now it's in the open, because now you're seeing it through the defense contractors now over there who are pushing for all that. That's $61 billion. That's never even going to get anywhere close to a Ukrainian soldier's hand. It's not even going to touch it. I had a guy on one of my shows the other day, and he said they're making the Ukrainian soldiers and military buy their weapons. Think about that.
It's outrageous.
We've sent 250 billion. We're all into them for 250 billion, and they're making them pull that money in that way. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It's one of the biggest grifts I've ever seen.
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Q?
As in QAnon Q?
QAnon.
I'm going to tell you, I've never been able to quite get my brain around it. I just can't. I see it and I read about it all the time, but I don't understand it, I guess.
So what was happening? What was happening? See, I'm somebody who actually thinks it's totally legit.
It could be.
I think it's complete. It has to be, because what we saw, basically on the 4chan boards, you'd see, Q post something, and then immediately with the same exact timestamp at the same exact time, Trump would post something and kind of reference something from the Q post. So, and you see this like thousands of times over and over again, and you're just like, there's something to this. There's got, how could there not be? You know what I mean?
And there's a lot of people that buy into it. I mean, there's a lot of people that have that I mean, and I'm just saying that have some reason, they've read something, seen something that has evidenced to them that this is something that exists. You're given a prime example of that. I just haven't followed it as well. Could it be? Yeah, easily could it be? The thing that I always like yesterday, I'm at lunch with the family. And the owner of the business, this Hispanic gentleman who's very conservative, he comes up every time he sees me, comes up and talks to me. And he comes up and he says, I'm reading a lot about all these people that have left the military that are organizing now, that are making sure, everything from, I don't know if you've read this thing called tactical civics and the idea of militias and things like that, which I think are embedded in our DNA, this idea of
I had Bill Ogden on my show last week.
Oh, did you? Okay. All right. So you're aware of this whole thing. And I think it's sound reasoning. His book, good book. And so I read about this all the time, and he's talking to me about this, and I'm talking to him. I said, yeah, I mean, there probably are. There's a lot of pipe hitters that got kicked out of the military. They or bailed because they weren't going to get the jab, right? So they're out here on the streets. They're still going to the gym, staying in shape, doing their marksmanship stuff. And I'm just saying that they're not going home and sitting around curled up in a ball. Trust me. And these people are organizers anyway. They're operators. They don't do that. That's not in their DNA to sit around and do nothing. They see the problem and they're going to start looking at solutions. So I'm just saying that with that in mind, I was talking to this guy and I said, I believe that's probably something that's going to go on. I believe it, that there are going to be organizers, especially in this place of the idea of local security and defense and things of that nature, that again, they make, the FBI and the folks in DC, they think of militias as like some kind of a biker gang or a drug, cartel or something. They don't see it as regular moms and dads that just get together and have organized and want to make sure their neighborhoods are safe and they're in their counties and they want to make sure that they've got proper governance there. That's it.
I mean, I foresee tactical civics becoming a very important, how could I say, set of information that everybody needs to know. I mean, bringing a jury of 12. I mean, just imagine what you could do, rooting out local corruption. I mean, you're here in Arizona.
Yeah,
I mean,
you wouldn't if you had that here in Arizona, none of that nonsense up in Maricopa would have been able to take place. I mean, that right there is just runaway government. That is a group of people up there. I bet you could grab, 20, 30 people down here in Tucson and ask them about Katie Hobbs and what she's done and who she is. And they couldn't tell you. They don't follow her. A lot of the people that I talk to have, in essence, just totally disavowed this person. They do not believe she's the governor. And so by having this this conservative House, it's just been kind of a blocking function to everything she's trying to do. I mean, all she can do is just sign these stupid little things, the only thing that was interesting was, I knew they'd do it sooner or later. They're going to start pulling Republicans away because sooner or later somebody up there is going to do something that they don't want their constituents or wives or husbands to know about. And that's what these Marxists use. They use that leverage.
You were talking about the bridge in Baltimore, is it?
Yeah.
The Bay Bridge.
Mm-hmm. The Keys, Francis Scott Key Bridge.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, the collapse.
What do you think happened there?
You know what? I've talked to a couple of people about this, and I was reading some stuff that Lara Logan wrote, and I think she's spot on. L. Todd Wood, I was on his show. He and I were discussing it as well. He's that stuff is all GPS driven. That stuff is all computerized. They do this thousands of times a year,
Right.
and they've been doing it for hundreds of years. It's the idea that, this, and now you got these train derailments, you got these things on the highway, you had a truck last week on I-95, all that stuff. At some point, you got to believe what you're seeing. You got to quit thinking these are all just, as a case officer, one of the things we used to be taught in the agency was you have to overcome coincidence. You can't allow for it. You have to prove coincidence. You can't just say, oh, well, they showed up there while I was there. It's just a coincidence. Hey, how you doing? You could never allow that. You had to track down where they came from, why they were there, what was the deal. You had to flesh out the details. You had to overcome coincidence. I think we got to get to that point where we overcome all these coincidences and start looking at it and saying, who's behind this? What happened? Where's the money coming from? What's the purpose of this? A lot of this stuff to me, like that thing in last week, a lot of this stuff to me you can collect so much intel from that. Okay. Tanker goes out on the highway, boom, blows up, fire. They make people stay at home, work from home. 150,000 cars go through there every day. None of them could go through there until today. Stuff like that. If people can't start putting this together and understand, okay, I found out this, and this by doing that.
Well, we had 100. It was like 100 food processing plants that burned to the ground last year.
Oh yeah. And we all see this, and nobody ever stops and goes, why is this happening? Well, let's see. You're running the farmers out of business. You're going after them, and then you're getting rid of the food. Again, one of the things you learn when you're in these SEER type courses and these survival courses is you got to have three things. You got to have some way to transact, you got to have some way to communicate, and you got to have some way to stay healthy, eat. And once you start, once you can get rid of, that's why people don't want to buy gold. There's an example, because you can transact gold. You don't need the government to do that. You don't need a piece of paper, silver and whatever. And I can go out and buy a car. I can get mobility then, which is that fourth thing. But the first three I need are, I've got to have a way to transact and buy stuff. I've got to have a way to communicate with others around me. And I have to have food, sustenance. So, and that's what I think a lot of this is. You look at that up there, that hits mobility, that hits production, that hits that stuff does a lot. You close down that bay, that bridge collapse. Now you've got some serious issues there.
So is that what they're doing? Are they taking down do they anticipate Trump winning in November, and they're just doing everything they can to create as many problems for him as possible?
Yeah, I heard somebody call today refer to it as Trump proofing the presidency, the government.
Right.
So that when he gets in, they have a hard time he's going to have, this hard time. I think that by doing that, I think they are accepting the fact that he could end up back in. That's one. But two, by doing that, I think they're playing a very, very small game there, because I think what he will do in the office, all these little things they're doing, they're gonna be under the collapse of this massive government bureaucracy he's going to take apart. So all these they think they're clever, and they always do. That's the funny thing. The Marxists, they never sleep. They're always looking for ways to, and they don't just come into your face and do it until they're winning. When they're winning, they're in their face. But all the time, they're always behind the scenes trying to do this stuff. And I think the things that Trump needs to do, and would probably do if he gets back in office, would be so much bigger than that structurally, that those little things that they're talking about won't. I don't see him making a whole lot of difference.
I think these people are part of a cabal. I do too. I think it's a satanic cult. What are your thoughts on that? Are these?
I think it's certainly evil driven. So to say that is probably pretty sound. I think some of them are. I've read some of them believe in this and do this, and they use symbols to make sure where they are on this stuff. So I believe that's in there, but I believe this all stems from two things. This is about getting us to fall in line into this global governance They want they want the haves, and then they want the have-nots, and they want to throw you a crumb every now and then, but keep you down there where you should be. But they want to have one person calling the shots for the globe, so they can move people around whenever they want. They can make you stay at home whenever they want. They can do, the what is with the digital currency. They can shut you down whenever they want. Control your spending habits, get into the guns, and one of the things that I think has always been interesting to me about this whole cabal. When you look at Zelensky and Putin, and you look at this Russo-Ukrainian war and what's going on there, I mean, the left and the Marxists that are all behind this globalist stuff, this Victoria Nuland at State and all these people,
she's the worst.
They want that. They want Russia. The Ukraine was that's just a pit stop.
Right.
They wanted Russia, and they thought Navalny was going to be it. And Putin said, I don't think we're going to do that. He shut that down really fast. And that's the same thing Modi did in India. Remember that who's the girl that's got the Asperger's, and she's Greta Thunberg, I think her name. Yeah, Thunberg. She was the one that was trying to go in there, and she went on to start saying there's going to be a color revolution in India. And Modi said, okay, shut all the social media down. We're not doing that either. I mean, these guys don't do that. They're about their countries first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's what makes the globalists, the cabal out in Davos so upset, is that, and it's easy to vilify them because you got Putin, he's an ex-KGB guy, they're authoritarian. I get it, whatever you like. What I do know is they want that piece of property there. They want that. That's the ultimate, because that's problematic right now. It's Russia and the US. You got these two big countries running around out here saying, yeah, we'll have self-determination. You got these guys over here in the West going, yeah, we're going to stay Christian, and we're going to keep going to church, get our guns. And then Putin, you got him over there going, nah, we're not going to let you get up on our borders. We're going to stay Russia first, and keep the Catholic Church here and all that. Okay, with these two independent countries out here doing this, it's such a big obstruction to the whole globalist mentality. They need the two biggest. They know India would fall if those two countries, if we and Russia were not there. China go in there and start, mixing up with India quick. They do it all the time anyway. So
didn't Robert Mueller, bring the samples of uranium to Putin?
That I'm not sure of. I read that somewhere, I think. I'm not just shortly. I don't know whether he did that or not. I know that, of course, we know that, what happened in the run up to the war, and the doofus here that took it over there to the Middle East, and was doing his thing there. But I don't know what Mueller did there. I'm not really sure. I know there was, because we had, uranium one, and but I'd heard that Hillary Clinton was part of that whole shift when she was at State, and that she sold so much of uranium one. Now, could Mueller have been the one, the person, the boots on the ground, if you will, making that happen for her? I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, if somebody said that to me, I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know if you ever read Jerome Corsi's book, Killing the Deep State.
I haven't read that. I know Jerome Corsi, but I haven't read.
He's incredible, but it's interesting. James Comey, every time Comey would go into government, Mueller would go out, and vice versa. So they were always shifting in and out.
Yeah, no, that's that you see that happening all the time, and especially with the left. The right does it some too. You'll see it some. My wife used to work up on the Hill, and I used to go up there, and you'd see the same thing. That same kind of backdoor nonsense going on, but that's what they do, and they do it especially with the media too, and media family. Like you'll see it all the time. Some guy you'll find out some guy on NBC, his wife works for the State or is in the White House, and you won't know it up front, but it'll come out at some point, and somebody on the right will report that. But that revolving door for them, that's why part of the problem, and going back to that tactical civics, what's so important is for them to be able to, that DC, that should be pulled apart. It shouldn't even be there. It should be one building, the executive building behind the White House. That
Right.
should be where all government is.
Right.
Everything else
Agreed.
should be out in the states. It should be all over here, or it shouldn't be there at all. And let me give you an example. Okay, the attorney generals, the U.S. Attorney generals, they're dispersed through the states. Why didn't the FBI? Why don't you have one member in each state, and that one member has to use local law enforcement, state sheriff, state.
Right.
He's got to use those people to do his work. Now imagine what happens.
Right.
We have control. Local sheriffs will have control. And that federal rep is nothing but a rep like they send FBI guys out to the embassies overseas. They're called attaches. That's it. They don't have any say other than guidance from the Home Office, legal and otherwise, and they help guide. But they can't go in there and tell local embassy people what to do and what not to do. That's the same way it should be here. They should be dispersed, and there shouldn't be hardly any of them. There should be 50, one in each state and each capital, and maybe he's got a deputy with him. That's it. They should do the same thing they do with the attorney generals. They should, the U.S. Attorneys. They should do the same thing, and you should have the same thing with the Department of Agriculture. You should have a guy in Austin, and he works with local farmers and local community leads. He doesn't get to run stuff. He doesn't get to come and write bogus, unconstitutional laws that all these poor farmers have to. Oh, I got a pond in the middle of my. It's not a pond. It's where it rained last night. No, it's a pond. I mean,
outrageous.
You're talking about the the Environmental Protection Agency, which again probably shouldn't even exist. But my thing is that the sooner they get rid of that, the better. I think that's what Heritage at 2025 ought to be doing. They ought to be, okay, we're going to bring people in that are going to be behind Trump, 100%. We're going to do the next, 5,000 people under Trump's 1,200 and his cabinet. So they come in and they clear out all the management, everything. But everybody going in there ought to be going in there with one thing. How do I get rid of this? How are we going to close? How are we going to have continuity with laws, with the Constitution, but get rid of all these people that have been. You go into some of those agencies in DC, and there's still nobody sitting at that desk since before COVID. No one. But somebody gets paid for that desk.
Right.
Somebody still supposedly working.
Right.
Somebody still has that position. And you'll find positions there that have been passed down generationally. So because they all live in DC, they live there. Right. So when he calls it a swamp, I remember him saying that, and I used to think, man, you don't even know. Back in 2016 when Trump would use that term, I thought, that's insulting a swamp there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much worse than what anybody can imagine. And I mean, I've sat in meetings in DC and in my old capacity, and you'd see people come in and they'd say, hey, Director so-and-so, you have an appointment to testify this afternoon at 3 at the, in front of the sissy or the hissy, whoever, the oversight committees. And he turned around and goes, I'm not going in there. Call them and tell them I'm not. That's the respect they have for you, for us, because those people are supposed to be our oversight. That's how we find out what's going on. And until we get to a point where we say, yeah, we're not doing that stuff anymore, we don't need
when we get to that point. I mean, what do you see playing out? I mean, my opinion, I don't think we have an election in 2024. I just don't
I've heard some pretty I've heard some people that I've followed for a long time and thought were pretty sound thinkers and sound, generals that served on the chiefs of staff. And I've heard some of them say the same thing. They don't see how you can have one. Because look, these people right now, especially with the release of those documents down in Florida, these people know they're busted. They do. And I've said this all along. If Trump gets back in there, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to have to all go offshore, get their jets warmed up and get out of here, because they're going to have criminal indictments. I mean, it's just going to happen. the people that Trump's going to bring in are going to go after these people for what they've done. This thing up in New York and down in Georgia, all these lawyers that have had their civil rights taken away from them, that
outrageous.
is a huge. And the fact that for you taking a retainer and defending somebody, you're now being brought in here. And that idiot, what's her name? Mays up in Maricopa, bringing what, 18? She filed charges against 18 of them. And the idea that you can just disregard these lawyers, their attorney-client privilege, and that you can just pierce that veil. You're never going to have an attorney in this country able to work again.
It's beyond crazy. What I think about stuff like, what Cuomo did in New York during COVID.
Yeah.
All those seniors in nursing homes.
Yeah.
He murdered them.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And are you from New York?
Yeah, originally from Long Island.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife's from Smithtown.
Nice. Okay.
She's from there. But anyway, but yeah, this whole idea that you can just go in on this bogus emergency order and tell people what they can and can't do. I mean, it's absurd.
It's absurd.
And yeah. And this whole idea, this vaccine, and I can't tell you how many people I just told them, I said, look, I've worked for the government. I know their competency levels. I know what they care about and what they don't. And if we lost 1 million people to that vaccine, they would cover it up and never worry about it. Never look back once.
Yeah, I think they're making vaccines now for the people that had vaccines.
Yeah. To try to clean them out. They're finally. Did you see Cuomo came out last week and said, "I'm sick." The one that's on Newsmax now.
Oh, the brother.
Yeah, he came out and he said, "I'm having issues because of the vaccine."
I wonder if they turned him. On his brother.
I don't know.
I feel like there's a lot of backdoor dealings. I saw a video. It looked like James Clapper in interrogation. Like they were interrogating James Clapper. And James Clapper, Obama's DNI, Director of National Intelligence.
I knew Clapper. Clapper, I'm going to tell you something. That guy he had no operational experience at all. He was never a case officer. He always talks about tradecraft and this and that. And I'm always like, shut up. You've never even applied it. And he walks around with and I had a buddy tell me he still walks around with his green badge back there and that's a contractor badge. And I'm just like, that thing should have been ripped away from him.
But he was talking about how John Roberts of the Supreme Court, how he's compromised.
Yeah.
Right.
I've heard it. It's over his kids, over his the adoption of his kids.
Exactly.
But I saw that as well in Asia. I saw high-level people go over there, adopt Asian children, and they went through the back door to get them in. They didn't have to go through proper channels.
It's crazy.
I saw it, and I always thought, maybe that's an agreement between governments or whatever. But now I see it, and one guy, I was doing visas as part of my job, and they wanted me to clear one. I said, I'm not clearing that. I don't know where that child's going. I have no idea. You're not getting my signature anywhere near that. And they got mad at me. It brought me into the office, dressed me down for it. And I said, that's my choice. I'm not going to do it.
Good for you.
But at the time I wasn't, a lot of this just came out since Trump, right? I mean, a lot of people that I voted for and trusted and believed in, out of all of them, the only one I never did was McCain. I left that blank every time I voted. Never voted for him.
Did you see the flag on his coffin?
What's that?
Did you see the wrinkled flag on his coffin?
No, I didn't see that.
If you look at his funeral, his flag was wrinkled.
Oh, wow.
Which I think means, correct me if I'm wrong, but that means you're a traitor.
Yeah. No, he's, I'm just saying that I think, and so much of what he did in the Ukraine is where we are today. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw that Oliver Stone documentary on it. It's called Ukraine Burning or something like that.
I got to see it.
Get a chance to watch it. Oliver Stone did a really good job on that one. That was I think that was before the Putin interviews, but
I feel like Oliver Stone's one of those guys that understands.
No, he does. Now I'm friends with his son Sean, and his son Sean is way over. I mean, he makes you know, he makes his dad look. I mean, his dad looks like. But yeah, Sean's really hardcore red pilled. I mean, he was. I remember him first or years ago when I was when I owned Vocal. He used to come on our platform and did a lot of content for us, and he and I would talk, and I was just like, wow, I would never expect him to be Oliver Stone's son because he is hardcore red pilled Trump early 2016. I couldn't believe and he was still living out there at the time in Hollywood. Now I think he's in Florida, I think, or something like that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of California.
Oh yeah.
I think things are going to get bad. I mean, I've heard that, you know, when this all goes down, some cities are going to burn.
I think they're going to do. I think it starts with what we saw last week in the universities. That's going to spill to the streets. I think it's going to go fast. And figure about the time BLM started, I think I read somewhere that it was this time. I think it was like the 26th of May when George Floyd, that whole thing went down. I think it's just going to take that one thing, and they know it's going to happen. It's already out there. It's already in the planning. It started. I always tell people,
all the same people change uniforms.
Yeah.
Change uniforms.
Yeah. And it's going to start. And once it does, that's going to be the beginning of what's going to happen all summer. And then, you know, just making sure we have a lot of prayers for Trump and that team, because that's going to be, I think it's going to get ugly, a lot uglier.
I agree. Well, John, where can people find you?
Well, you can find my show on the Caravan to Midnight app. I think it's called Zoo Talk. Zoo Talk is the app. It's ZUTALK. You can download it. It's the Caravan's streaming platform. But I'm on there. I'm on Rumble. So I'm putting out 2 shows a week. So you can catch me on there. And then I'm on X at I am John Ritchie. That's Ritchie with a T, RITCHIE. So
awesome.
Yeah. That's it.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. Really, really
Absolutely.
interesting stuff.
Enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
All right. See ya.
All right.